Hello, this is Richard. We're going to go ahead and get started. Sorry for the delay. And I'm going to be doing some modeling so that you can ask any questions about what's going on as we go along. And if you have any specific questions about how to do certain things in Blender, I'll take some time to show those to you. You can just leave a comment in the comment box, where I just wrote comment here. I'm going to be watching that while I'm working, and then I'll read any questions you have so that we can talk about them. So I'm in Blender 2.7, and when you first open it up, it's going to have the timeline down here. It's going to look basically like this. So I have the other videos available to go over how to do certain things and how to get going with Blender so that you can watch those, and we don't really need to go over those basics in this video. We can just do some more modeling type things. And I wanted to talk mostly today about topology. I'm going to do a video specifically about topology, but let's look at some things here, like this Swiss Army knife that I made. So let's get out of camera view, and here's a Swiss Army knife I modeled. It took me a few hours to get everything right, paying attention to detail. And then let's look at this in edit mode. And wireframe. Okay, so if you can see this, we have all these different parts, and there's a bunch of triangles on this key, and I would need to redo this topology on this key because of these triangles. But you want to mostly stick to quads, four-sided polygons, because Blender works the best in quads. So you don't want to have a lot of ingons like this one here. It's got a whole bunch of sides. As you can see, if I start selecting these, there's one, there's another one there. So all the way around, it's a whole bunch of different sides, and that can cause some problems when you're trying to show different things that you're doing. Like I can't do an edge loop through that polygon. See how it's going to go around the sides? I chose to leave that there because I needed some different edges and edge loops on different sides, and the sides are very different of this. But if you'll look at this spiral, it's all made out of squares. So the spiral itself, you can do an edge loop all the way around anywhere on this spiral. And that's the difference between good topology and bad topology. Lots of people would probably tell you this is bad topology right here where all of these come together. It's going to have some issues with shading. I don't really know that it will, because that's all flat. I'm not making that polygon change its shape along itself. So you can see here in the rendered view, it looks okay. It's not creating a lot of noise or a lot of weird shading on it. And that's what topology means. It's just like you have a topology map of the world, where it's going to show the different topology lines of a mountain, different heights and things like that. It's basically the same thing. It's what breaks up your objects. You want to have as few polygons only in places where you need them. So you want to get rid of excess polygons. Like this is a flat side. If I had a bunch of edge loops here, those would be absolutely unneeded, creating needless polygons, even if I was using them for just something down at the bottom. It's useless, and you would want to get rid of them. So let's look at another one. Here's some scissors that I made. Let's look at them in rendered. Here they are rendered. And they look pretty good. I'm pretty happy with them. Let's take this piece and look at it in topology. The wireframe of it. See how this is all squares? I haven't applied my subsurface modifier, so it's not showing anything like here where it curves in and it doesn't go all the way out to it. See, let's go ahead and click that on. Whoops. There we go. Now you can see how it's made up of squares, four-sided rectangles, and polygons all over it, instead of a bunch of weird triangles in places. You have to be consistent all the way across. Even down here at the blade, it's still four-sided polygons. Especially, this is really important when you're going to animate something. If you're going to use it in a video game, you want to make sure that you use quads because they deform nicer and they shade better, because shading is based off of the tangent and the direction of the normal. With a triangle, if you try to average that across multiple triangles, it's going to create problems where those triangles meet. It's not going to know how to spread light around them. So if we open up this guy, look, you have a bunch of triangles coming together right here. That's going to present a problem when you try to shade it. Now, it might look okay if we go to shading and smooth and we render it. But see here, you get these hard corners where it's shading that you're having these problems where it doesn't know how to spread the light across this. Even though it's smooth shaded, you're going to have these problems. Let's go ahead and throw an HDRI on here, which is going to give us some good world lighting, because an HDRI is a high dynamic range image. It's going to wrap an image around this that has points of light coming from all sides and give it something to reflect. It's a really easy way to make a world scene lit more realistically. I like this one pretty well. I think the lighting is pretty gentle. It's not too harsh. It's got some nice neutral tones in the color that's of the light that's reflected. And you can see, like right here, we've got a big corner. That's pretty ugly. It doesn't shade very well. So let's get out of that. That's the problem with triangles. And another problem, if I hit Control-R to try and do an edge loop, it's nowhere. You can't do them through triangles. It doesn't know where to cut through these, because is it going to go around this circle, or is it going to go around here, or is it going to go here and then this way and then that way? Because it has to go from the middle of one edge to the middle of another, and it doesn't know which edge to go to because it has two edges that are opposite. And that's why n-gons are a problem as well. So you want to stay away from this shape, and you also want to stay away from anything with more than four sides. So you really want to work in quads more than triangles or n-gons. Let's get rid of that, and let's go ahead and make something. I was hoping to get some suggestions on what to make, but I guess not. So what would be fun? Let's go ahead and, what do I need to make? I need to make a thumbtack. So if you all have any better ideas, please let me know, and I will listen, and I'll change what I'm doing, and I'll make whatever you want. So I'm just going to make a thumbtack. I'm going to start with a cylinder. We can leave it at the default, but if you want a different shape, or if you want it to be low poly, you would change that here. See, now it's a square rectangular, turn that down to 3, now it's 3-sided cylinder, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, all the way up, and we'll just leave it at 32, how's abouts. Control-R, add an edge loop in here. I'm going to make one of those like push pin ones, not the rounded ones. And what you can do is you can go out to the internet and find an image. I'm working on 2 monitors here, so you're not really seeing my search. But let's find a good side view of one of those pins. And I'm just going to download this image. And then here, you hit N to go into your Properties panel. And let's go to Background Images right here. check mark that box, and then go to Add Image. And then we're going to open our download, and this saved as a number. Saved as that one. So now if we go to our background image, we're going to put this on the front view. And then we're going to hit 1 for front view, and you see I have my thumbtack that I can use as a reference. So let's take this cylinder and let's rotate it. Whoops, let's grab all of it first and rotate it. And we can just grab it and put it here in the middle. And change this to never mind. We'll just leave it how it is. And we'll grab this face. Now we can switch it to normal. And pull that down in this face and pull that up. And put it on edge, and then Alt clicking grabs everything, and then we can just go to Tools and slide that edge down to where we want it. Whoops, I hit space instead of Alt. And I haven't ever mentioned that in any of my videos doing the hitting space. It's a quick way to search for something like to sphere. It'll round something out to a sphere. It'll round your geometry out to a sphere, and you can do more or less. That's handy, but I haven't mentioned this hitting space to search because I think it's the lazy way. You need to learn your hotkeys, and if you're always hitting space to get to certain things, it's really going to start slowing you down and making you frustrated. So let's just grab these, and we'll start scaling these out to match the geometry that we have as our reference. And lots of times it's great to just have an idea and to go with it, to make things exactly how you want out of your brain, but most of the other times you want to have a reference. And then we've got this guy, so let's just extrude it down. Let's take it all the way down and scale it out. There, then let's put some ring cuts in here, or some edge loops, sorry. And you can make this pretty rough because we're going to refine it with subdivision surface modifier. So just make that look rounded. It's pretty good. And I'm just, you know what, here, let's turn on screencast keys. Then you can see what buttons I'm pressing as I'm doing this. Whoops. So really just, this is still that cylinder. If I move this, you can see how it's coming along as a cylinder that I'm working on. And then we'll just hit 1 to go back into front. I'm just scaling this out to meet the geometry of the image that I want. And this last one, scale it in. Here we go, that's basically it. Do you think it's a little bit rounded on the bottom? We can make it a little bit rounded. Just a little. There, that's basically it. And now we're going to have an n-gon right there. See, that's one made up of all these different sides. Not much you can really do about it. I'm not going to worry about it. That's about a pushpin. So now, let's go ahead and make it see-through like it is in the image, that see-through purple. So we're going to want to model this pin next. So let's tab here and let's just hide this and add in a new object for the pin. And let's use another cylinder. So we're just going to rotate this and scale it on the X. Oops, absolutely wrong. Let's just scale it since I rotated it first. It's always easier if you can find a straight up and down image, and then you don't have to work having rotated stuff. That's my preference, is to rotate last. And if I hit Z, it's going to put it on the global. If I hit Z again, it'll put it on my normal, like I have it. Let's go into edit mode and wireframe so I can grab that face. Now, looks like I need to rotate that just a little bit more. The whole process, really, everything that you're doing, once you know how to use all of your tools and how your workflow is going to go, everything else it's pretty fun, I think. It's kind of like a puzzle of how you're going to break down the certain thing that you're working on right now to make it in Blender, to make it easy enough that you can understand it, how you can understand the pieces, what shapes they are to begin with. And that's really the key, because there's this huge learning curve with Blender, but after that, you have to know how to use these tools. That's where the artistry comes in. You have to be able to look at things and break down those things to be able to be created in this tool. So that's really the next skill to develop once you've figured out how to use these tools, is how to look at things to start solving that puzzle. I think it really is a fun puzzle. It's my favorite part, is figuring out how to do these things. And it comes with a lot of failure, and it comes with a lot of anger sometimes when you work on something for an hour only to realize that you've been doing it wrong the whole time. So now let's go ahead and make this point, and I'm just going to scale this up here. If you look at the point of a needle, at the point of almost anything, when it comes down to it, it never comes to an actual point. It's always a little bit rounded. So I'm not going to worry too much about joining all of these vertices into a point. What I am going to do is just bring them together. And let's use proportional editing because it's a great tool. Whoops. You don't want to cross past the origin. Maybe that was nice rounded. I need to start from further away though. You can see as I scroll in and out how it affects it differently. I'm scrolling in or scrolling out what I'm selecting and going to be using. That might be a little too rounded, so let's choose a different one here. Let's try the linear and see how that goes. Well, that looked rounded too, didn't it? That looks more rounded. The sharp isn't going to work. That's not going to be... Yeah, that's opposite of what I'm wanting. Okay, we'll just stick with smooth. That was close enough. If we zoom out, yeah, that's going to look pretty good. Now if we want to, we can just go back in here and let's turn that off now. Oops. You can hit O to turn it on, but it just turns it on to enable. And O again turns it off. So if you put it on connected and you want to turn it off real quick and you hit O, realize it just puts it on enabled. So then you start doing something and you'll have some problems. So you have to hit O twice. I usually use it on connected, and O twice will turn it off. At any time, if anybody has any questions, they want to see something specific, feel free to ask me, and I will stop what I'm doing and show you, answer your question, help you out however you need. I mean, that's the main reason that I want to be here doing this, is to give you guys an extra resource in learning how to use Blender. Oop, I'm in object mode, so I'm just going to hit smooth there, and Alt-H will unhide everything. Let's smooth that one out. Alright, now I might be a little off center. I'm not going to fret it too much because a lot of times these push pins are off center, or these will be bent or weird in some way. Well, that looks pretty good. You could leave it this way and it would be 800 polygons, or you could add some subsurface to it. And let's see what that would look like. Now we're up to 9,000 polygons, so that's probably a bit too high for my purposes. 2,000, that's about right. For an item that's going to go into a video game, yeah, 2,000 is a lot better. I might even just stick with 800, then I can put a few of them coming in at the same time. But just to show it to you guys, now let's go into edit mode and let's put our mesh onto the modifier. And you can see how when you have a circle here as an end-on, it kind of does this starburst pattern. And you can go back around here and grab all these ones on the outside and scale them all in to a median point to make it a circle again, which I would suggest, because that does have some problems with shading. If you can see it here. Not so much. You can't really see it. Sometimes you can, especially if it's not a gradual slope into it. If it's, like especially on plates, for some reason, I really see that in the shading, the smooth shading of plates really messes it up. So you'll want to go back. Let's go ahead and I think this looks great. I do kind of want a harder seam here, so I'm going to hit Shift-E to pull that in. And maybe here too, just a little bit, not as much. Yep, that looks good to me, so I'm going to hit apply here. Whoop, we can't do it in edit mode. And now we can come back. See how it's going to make everything into quads for you, subdivision surface. So if you have to retopologize, it can be a good way to quickly get rid of quads. I thought maybe Shift-R would select all those around the circle for me. It doesn't. There's a few simple things that Shift-R is good for. That's the repeat last. It's this button here as well. And if you're just doing a simple translate or a simple rotate or scale or copying an object, then Shift-R will do it over and over and over again. in the same way, and it can be pretty handy. Now, I still have it on normal. Okay, it's going to take the average of the normal, so we're going to scale all but Z. You know what? I'm just going to hit Shift V and see if we can slide these vertices. Yep, that's where it becomes a problem sometimes. When you select multiple vertices to scale. Scale, Shift. There we go. You got to hit it twice. And that's mostly better, but see how it gives those ridges? That's why I wanted to slide that. So now we got to take all of those. There we go. And bring them down just a little bit to fix that topology. There. Much better. That will shade much nicer. And you wouldn't really have to worry about it on the bottom. I mean, how many people are going to see the bottom of a thumbtack? But just to be consistent in what we're doing, let's go ahead and do it. A faster way to do this is to brush these in with C, the circle select. And it's not going to get anything that's behind, although sometimes it'll get close. It's only what's visible, so that's why you might want to jump into wireframe when you're selecting things. All right, make sure that that Z is actually pointing away from everything. It is. I'm just going to scale and Shift Z. Now that puts it on the global. We're going to hit it again. That puts it on the normal. Okay, I wasn't far away enough to start with, so I had less intricate, less precise movement. So we're just going to scale that again, starting from up here. Now I can move slower and be more accurate with my scaling. That looks good, and we still have got a little bit of ridges there. So let's go back into front and fix it. This time, you got to bring them out a little. Looks good to me. Now what you can do is let's select this whole. It's not going to let me do it. Select this whole edge loop here. Make sure we get all of it. Yep. And let's smooth vertex. Oops. It's just going to put them back, isn't it? Never mind. We'll just leave it like that. Okay. So I'm going to say that thumbtack's done. It only took like 15 minutes. I was going kind of slow to make sure you guys could see everything. And now let's go over here and let's put some materials on it. This is always a fun thing to do. So I'm going to first let's hide that background because we know it's going to be a kind of clear purple, and we know that the pen is going to be kind of a metal. So you can just hit this eyeball here. And now we didn't remove the background image. See, I can just hit that eyeball again and bring it back. If I hit this X, it'd be gone and I'd have to reload it if I wanted to look at it again as a reference. So we're just going to hide it for now. Let's pull up our node editor here. Remember, you can just go to this window and choose node editor right there. And we're going to hit new, and that gives us the default diffuse. And then let's add first a mix shader and a transparent, or do we want to make it, let's try transparent. No, I don't want to do that. See, this is the other thing, is you have to, it's just kind of a puzzle to get the exact look that you want. You need to build things in the right way, so you really got to think about it, and you got to try a few different things. We might try a few different setups here with our materials before we get the one that's going to work. Well, let's try it with glass. I'm going to pull this up here so that we can switch this to rendered. There we go. Yeah, now we kind of can see through it. Let's change this to purple. Let's change this one to the same color. Let's refract less, and let's make it more glass. I'd say that's pretty close. Let's try 0.85 even. There we go. We can see the pen coming through it. Hmm. 1.6. Yeah, that looks good. Like a nice push pin lollipop. Just a little tiny bit of roughness, just so that the light will reflect off the outside a little bit, make it look less clean plastic, or less clean glass and more plasticky. And then we could even add another mix in here. I want to put it on this diffuse and add in glossy. See, it's going to make it look even more plasticky. Grab that eyedropper and put it here. So let's just take a quick render. And right here, this is your indirect light clamp. You see these little dots here. These are individual pixels of where the light's reflecting straight back at the camera. We call those fireflies. So I'm just going to put my clamp on 0.6, and then when you re-render, you'll see those are gone. Clamping that indirect light really helps get rid of fireflies, and then you don't have to turn your samples way, way high up. There, I think that looks pretty good. Nice and plasticky, kind of see-through. It's not as see-through as the other one is, but it still gives pretty good illusion. So let's even make this 0.9. 0.8. Yeah, see, it's going away fast. That glass look to it. And it could be because this is too dark of a purple. You just don't want to fully turn the brightness or the saturation of any one color up to 100, and you don't want to turn the value all the way up to 1, because it leaves no room for shading to make the colors brighter. Just like you don't want to have full blacks, because then your shading can't make anything darker either. Oh, and it could have been the direction that that render was being taken from. It's taking it from right on top. If we move it over to the side, it might be more transparent, more easy to see. All right, now let's switch to this one, and let's add a material on here. And this is going to be pretty simple. We just want this to be metal. So I'm just going to add a mix shader in here. And there's two different ways you can do metal. One's with the anisotropic BSDF, and the other is with a mix shader using diffuse and glossy. I'm just going to do diffuse and glossy. I think it'll produce the best consistent result. The engine that this is going to be going into is Unreal Engine, and Unreal Engine is pretty good about doing anisotropy. But if I want to put it in other engines and other places, maybe on cell phones, of course first I turn down the number of polygons, but after that I might change all the anisotropic filters or materials to a mix of diffuse and glossy. I'll just turn that down to black and leave this one on white, and like I said, this shouldn't be completely black, because you want to give a little bit of room for the shading to do its magic. And let's turn this down real low, this roughness. Now you can see you get a nice metal effect. Alright, that's pretty simple materials. I have a whole thing devoted to making realistic materials based off of images. These are real simple materials because you don't need much more than that. Let's get a render real quick to see what this looks like. I'm going to take a sip of my coffee. That looks pretty good. If a handful of these in different colors were thrown into a game as a weapon used by small creatures, I would think, hey, that's a thumbtack. So I'm happy with that, and I can just leave it how it is. So now let's join these two. This one and this one are two separate objects, and we're going to hit Control-J to join them. Now they're one object. And we're going to go up here, and we're just going to name it thumbtack. Maybe these aren't called thumbtacks. Maybe these are push pins. I don't know. Who knows? I don't care enough to find out. So let's scale this down a little bit. And then I'm going to add in a plane and, whoops, I'm going to rotate this just a little bit and scale it up. And really quickly add a checker texture to it. And we're going to make it, just pick some colors here. Oh, that's disgusting. There we go, that'll be better. And let's make these checkers bigger. And then let's make it a passive rigid body. That means it's not going to fall through the air. We're just going to use physics to drop this push pin and change this from convex hull to mesh. And then we're going to go here to our timeline, and you can watch it fall. And if things are bouncing off other things in a weird way, and you don't know why they're not laying correctly, you can look at the sensitivity here. You can turn that way down. And let's get it. There we go. Set up our render. And then we can watch this render out. Here it comes. And look at that. I'd say that looks pretty nice. Now we could add a little bit of noise. We could add a little plastic ridge in there from where it was molded. Those are those little things that would bring it from looking like it was made on a computer into looking like it was a real thumbtack. I don't know that I want to do that amount of detail because it is going to be in a video game that's going to be pretty unrealistic. Those are little projects and ideas that you can work on if you are going to be making this specific thing. And there we go. It's finished. I'm just going to hit F3 to save this. I'm going to save it in my render images as pushpin, because I've convinced myself that's probably what it's called instead of a thumbtack. So then, what else can we do? Send that back to the beginning. Make another one, and then you can just really quickly and easily go into the materials for this one. And you see, since I joined them, now this one object has two materials. Just put this into rendered. And now let's go into this material, switch this to the node editor. We have our two alike push pins, but I'm going to take these nodes here and A to select all of them and copy them, and I'm just going to delete that material from it. Now it made it all metal, so I'm going to add a new material, new, and I can go down here and I can hit delete and get rid of those, and copy these onto it so that I can change this color. There we go. And then what we have to do is, let's get out of this and go into edit mode. These are still two separate objects. If we go into Z, you can see how this goes into that one. The meshes aren't connected anywhere. So I can hover over this mesh and hit L and select just that piece. And I'm just going to hit assign here on that. Now you'll see that one's blue, that one's purple. And tab out of that. I think I want one more. Whoops. Shift D. This one is going to be opaque. So I'll just get rid of this shader here. Change this to 0.5 because the defaults are pretty good plastic, I think. And we're going to make it yellow. Here we go. Oh, duh, we got to assign it. Well, that looks more metal than it does plastic. So let's mess with some of our settings here. More glossy, let's make this more rough. Yeah, it's looking kind of metallic. What if you just go in here oh, come on now. And turn this roughness up. Makes it look kind of dark. Let's turn this down. I'd say that's better. And still, it looks like One of those little gold thumbtacks. I'm not going to fret too much about it. Just want to see which looks better. See, right now I just went straight from this mix shader, so it's like I deleted this down here. Yeah, I like it better without the glass at all. Okay. So now let's switch this back to the timeline. And all three of them, since I copied them after I applied the physics, they should all have the right physics. Rigid body active to the mesh. Yep. Let's grab those, and we don't need them to fall from so high up this time. Replay that and you'll see them all bouncing. And there we go. I mean, that's basically it. Something pretty simple. And you can see how we started with just a cylinder, and we found a reference image that we placed in the background. And then off that background image, we positioned our cylinder, and we extruded it, and then scaled those edge loops around it to make the basic shape of this push pin. We used another cylinder here and left it completely straight except for the tip, where we put an edge loop and then slid that edge loop along the cylinder down to this point, added some more edge loops, and then used proportional editing to make that into a point. We scaled it a little bit after that just to make it more pointy and less rounded. And then we used smooth shading on the metal for the pin and for the plastic so that we wouldn't see those polygons. We applied a subsurface modifier to this, and then we used edge crease here and here to make it less smooth in those two places and more like it was molded. And then we went into our cycles materials and created some materials using glossy and diffuse to make that metal, with the diffuse all the way black and the glossy was white. And we used, for the plastic, the see-through plastic, glass, glossy, and diffuse to give it that plasticky see-through look that still refracts some light, but it does look more plasticky based on the way that the light is shining off of it, because we have the glossy and diffuse in there as well, and it's not just the glass. And then we copied that same thing, and we applied physics, and then we dropped it onto this surface so that we could get a better render. We created this plane really quickly. I know some people hate those textured planes that I use as a floor. I like them. I think it's kind of signature style. And well, we didn't get any questions. Maybe next time there will be more questions during the live event so that I can answer your specific questions, because that's really what I want to do with this, is why I want to do these live events, is so that if you're wondering how to do something, if you watched my other videos, if you're just starting out and it's all really confusing to you, that you can get those questions answered. And this node setup here, this is just the basic metal setup that we have for those pins in there. And then let's look at this one again real quick. So you diffuse, glossy, go into this mix shader, and it goes in the top here, and then glass goes into the bottom of that mix shader to get that see-through plastic. So, I mean, if you try this or you try making something else, let me know in the comments, and I'll feature it next time, maybe, if I choose, and we'll talk about any problems that you've had doing this or anything else from any of my videos. You can, of course, ask me questions on here or other places, but that's about it, and I hope to see you in the next one.